So U of M Board of Regents Paul Brown and Gary Stevens. If they're here, just raise your hand, wave. Over here, I want to recognize members of the Detroit City Council who are here. Raise your hands. Gary, Joanne, and Reverend Spivey, and also pastors that are here. Any pastors, just stand. Any clergy members that are here, just give them a hand. And give yourselves a hand. Give everybody a hand that's here. I need you all to do something. President Clinton is here. He's getting ready to come out. I know you all are comfortable, but beloved, and I said beloved, if you would just please come down and fill in as much as possible this area, please do that. We would be greatly appreciative. Let's give them a hand. Thank you very much. God bless you. You're going to get a special blessing for being so cooperative. This is a nothing but love. This is a love fest. We want to show love on the TV. We want to show how together we are as folks who believe in voting and empowerment. So we need y'all to come down and spread out and fill in the gap in the rear. If you would do that, we would be very, very appreciative. Thank you so much. And if we could do it as quietly as we can, that would be helpful. Thank you very much. Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, let me make this real simple. Let me make this real simple. Ain't no mystery to nothing that's going on here today. If we show up, we win. If we stay at home, we lose. Let me say that again. If we stay at home, we lose. If we show up, we win. Can I get a winner in the house? We need to show up. We need to show up and to show out. I am offended, and you should be too, by the fact that we have a statewide gubernatorial race and folk have not come in Detroit and in your local community to talk to you about what they want to do for Michigan. How in the world can you run for the governor of the state of Michigan as an example and not come into Detroit and do a Detroit debate? That's like the governor of Massachusetts running for that office and not going to Boston. That's like one running to be the governor of Illinois and not going to Chicago. That's like one wanting to be the governor of California and never going to LA. But if they go good enough for those states, it's good enough for the state of Michigan. We demand accountability. And so, one of the reasons that that's not happening is because the emperor wears no clothes. We need to be very clear about that. If you're so strong, if your numbers are so high, if you got it in the bag, you should not be afraid of coming and talking to the people about what you're going to do. But the reality is that it ain't over until it's over. The streets of Detroit need to speak. The streets of Ecorse need to speak. The streets of Grand Rapids need to speak. The streets of Lansing need to speak. When the streets start speaking, folks start itching. We need to make folks start itching about the policies that they're going to bring forward. And so, everybody needs to leave here with the notion, with the intention that we must work until the work is done on November the 2nd. Don't believe the pundits. Don't believe the statisticians. Don't believe the fact that the Tea Party is so energized and we are so marginalized that we cannot get over. If the Tea Party can have a party, we ought to be able to have a coffee hour all around our community. And so, in case you forgot your history, the Tea Party got its name through the reality of the Boston Tea Party. You know, back in 1773, there were 3 ships that came to Boston, and they were charging a tax that the people did not want to pay. And as a result of that, they took the tea off the boats and threw it into the river. They thought that they had done the job. However, the next day, they noticed that the boxes of tea were floating back up on top of the river. And so difference. This is Michigan. This is Detroit. Detroit and Michigan should be respected. If you are not talking to the people before you get elected, you know the people ain't got nothing coming from you after you get elected. So the people who have so much to claim, don't you know that we're running in a situation where it's good to have national health care. It's good to have your child on your health care program until age 26. It's good to have the credit companies not be able to charge you interest rates 30 and 35%. It's good to have had your workman's compensation and your unemployment compensation extended. It's good to have folk who believe that there should be a moratorium on foreclosures. It's good to have the UAW, the auto industry, saved in the state of Michigan. It's good to have the auto industry. It's good to have the movie industry in our state, making movies all across this community. Some of y'all trying to get in the movies, I know it, but we got folk who don't want to deal with the reality of what they bring. And so we must make the silent voice the loud voice. We must take our dormant energy and we must let folk know that we have a personal stake in this election. It's not just about 2010, it's about 2012. It's also about who's going to sit on the Supreme Court. It's also about what national policies are going to be continued throughout our nation. It's also about who's going to sit at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue in the year 2012. It's also about we need some new folk on the Michigan Supreme Court. We need a new attorney general. This attorney general wants to file suit to stop healthcare programs in Michigan when he has one of the best healthcare programs in the country. Shame on folk who want to turn back the progress of our state. That's why what you do from this point on is very critical to the process. That's why President Bill Clinton came into Michigan, coming to Detroit at the Renaissance High School, one of the finest schools in the nation. And so finally, as we get ready to hear from the president and to hear from Burge-Bonero, it reminds me of a story. A man one day was walking along and he fell down into a pit, Joanne, and he couldn't get himself out of the pit. A subjective person came along and said, I feel for you down in that pit. An objective person came by and said, it's logical for you to be down there in that pit. A conservative person came by and said, only bad people fall down into pits. A mathematician came by and calculated what he must have done in order to fall down into the pit. A news reporter came by and wanted the exclusive story on the pit. An IRS agent came by and asked, are you paying taxes on your pit? A self-pitying person came by and said, you ain't seen nothing until you seen me in my pit. A fire and brimstone preacher, Reverend Brumfield, came by and said, you deserve your pit. A Christian scientist came by and observed that the pit is just in your mind. A psychologist noted that your mama and your daddy are to blame for you being down there in that pit. A self-esteem therapist said, believe in yourself and you can just get out of your pit. Don't you know, an optimist came by and said things could be worse down there in that pit. Don't you know that Burge-Bonero came by, seeing the man in the pit, reached down
Burge Pinero and the 42nd President of the United States of America, President Bill